the home stretch, and this is pretty special. I wouldn't normally reveal kind of behind the scenes stuff, but I want to make mention that, a festival like this has a certain budget, and we've normally only been able to afford one international speaker to bring them out. This year we stretched it to two, Nydia and Jessica. But I did have a big man crush on Marcel, and we had spoken previously. And he was incredibly generous, even though we didn't have any budget left. He flew himself out, which is amazing. And that's no small feat. So we're very grateful for that. So an extra big round of applause for our final speaker from LA State Design, Marcel Ziul.
All right. Well, thanks, James, for keeping me the last speaker. So I had, to work on my anxiety for my diarrhea the entire day. So thanks for that. I noticed that, coming here made me a smiley person. So because I don't really understand sometimes the accent. So people talk to me, I'm just like, but I'm working on it. So anyways, thanks for having me. This is awesome. My name is Marcel, and I'm the founder of State. State's a small studio in Los Angeles. And, this is my story. I'm going to share something with you, how I had to learn how to navigate through my ego and through the stuff that, was coming to me at the time. So this is my story. Please, I ask you guys to stay awake because I know this is the last session. So I'll keep it brief. Anyways, I had my first identity crisis when I was, 13 years old. I got into graffiti and I was tagging walls in my hometown. So my first identity crisis was about my name. Ziul is bullshit. It's not my last name. It was just a name that my buddies came up so I could tag my dad's wall with my name and he wouldn't notice. It's a stupid idea. My name is actually Luis. So they were like, why don't you just use Ziul, so your dad is never going to find out. And he never did. I actually had a talk with my dad. He passed away a few years ago. But before he died, I told him the truth. So Dad, so you're famous now. And this is the story about connecting the dots. It actually applies to me, not necessarily to you guys. But I think my whole point of coming here, traveling 16 hours and, was to inspire some of you or maybe piss you guys off. So I hope I make some, stuff happen. But through my career, I had to change how I see things and how I was like dealing with difficult moments in my career. And I was actually like really pissed off or really sad. And I was like, oh, this is not going to work. But if I changed the way I was seeing things, it was actually really good. So all the disadvantage that I have through my life actually became the biggest advantage I had. And I'll show you guys how. So the beginning of my career, I grew up in a small town just outside São Paulo. So I learned, I actually went to school to be a doctor. So I wanted to be a doctor and, work on like surgeries and stuff. But of course, never worked. And then my dad looked at me, he's like, oh, I know you like to draw some stuff. And why don't you work in this production company that I'm friends with the owner? So I went there, started learning After Effects and all that stuff. I was making no money. So everything for free, But it was good to go through that process of learning the basics. So I was working on, local, spots for wholesale. So changing the price of like the Coca-Cola, from $1.99 to $2.99, rendering that stuff and all that. But I always to do something bigger. I always wanted to get out of my city because I never fit in. It was like a suburb and a lot of, I would say, rednecks in that town. So I was like, dude, I don't fit in here because I would use like a different kind of t-shirt and people would judge me. Is Marcel gay? Is he weird or what the heck? So they were always judging me. And I was like, dude, come on. I just want to be an artist. I want to be different. So the beginning of the story is actually me getting mad to all that bullshit. So then that's when I moved to Sao Paulo. It's like only 50 miles from my hometown, but it's a total different game. So there, I start working on production companies and I landed on like, a few awesome studios. I learned a bunch of like different techniques and a bunch of different things. And then it wasn't feeling right. The only right thing happened to me in Sao Paulo is that that's where I met my wife. And I was telling her, I was like, dude, I kind of hate here. I want to go somewhere else. Let's go to Rio, right? So I was hired by one of the biggest production company in Rio, but dude, it was really weird. So the whole story is about me getting really mad at myself because I was investing my time. I was investing a lot of of my time and career and all of that with people that were taking me anywhere. I would go to like talk to my boss about a project, and he'd be like, "Do whatever you want. I don't care." I was like, "Dude, if you don't care, am I gonna care?" It was kind of weird. But then I discovered that I was actually driven by anger. When I feel really angry, and then I can feel the anger that it's really deep in my life, and then I change things. So I got pissed at my boss. And even though that I had an amazing position, I was making mad money. I was like living the dream, in Rio, and also the nightmare. So at work, it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool, but not as cool because he was disrespectful. And I was like, oh, dude, I don't like it here. That was the first time that my ego talked to me and say, dude, you got to get out of here. So I start reaching out to studios in LA. And then in 2007, I almost moved to Sydney. I talked to a studio here called Ink Project. I don't even know if they're around, but they made me an offer, and then I told them I'm going to LA, and then I'll talk to you guys in 2 weeks. Maybe I'll come here, maybe not. So then I went to LA, and I was like, dude, I saw Hollywood and everyone. I'm like, oh shit, I might move here. What a bad decision. But anyways, it was fun just being in LA. You know, having that experience. I was like, dude, this feels great. I'm gonna move to LA. So by the time that I was in Rio, I was already a creative director at the studio. So, which I think it's the worst mistake that we do in Brazil. Things in Brazil goes, you grow up so quick that you're not ready for that position. I wasn't ready to be a creative director at all. I didn't know shit. So I was like, that was when I moved to LA, that was my first crash with my ego because I thought that I was really good. I was like, oh, dude, I'm a creative director in Brazil. Now I'm moving to to the US, working one of the biggest studios at the time. And as soon as I got there, first day of work, they asked me to do rotoscope. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Doing rotoscope. Oh, shit. But to be honest with you guys, that was really good. It was like the restart. I was learning a new language, and then I started feeling comfortable. So I was navigating through like, okay, my ego is broken, but I can learn something out of it. So this is like my first 7 years of my career. I was staff for 2 years, and I decided to leave because I didn't like the company as much because they weren't growing as much and not getting the projects that I want to work on. And then I moved to be a freelancer, and then start working with my friends. So I was freelancing for all the studios like Buck and Stardust Prologue and you name it. I worked everywhere in LA. But I think that hit me right in the chest because I want to show you guys what I think was like the highlight of my career in LA as far as like projects. And then I'll tell you what I did like, after I finished this project.
The cuts in that break. I'll break it fast.
Cool. That was like the titles for Battleship, and I work at Prologue. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the studio. So I was working with this guy called Kyle Cooper, and working at Prolog was really important for me because I learned everything that I didn't want to stay to be. So I was working with Kaio, and Kaio is very egocentric. He would look at me, and sometimes he would say hi, sometimes he wouldn't say anything. I was like, dude, this blows. I want to talk to this guy. He's like, the celebrity. And so my last day at Prolog was like a 60 hours straight. I went in on Tuesday, and then I got out of there on Thursday. And I was like, dude, I really don't want to do this. It's really bad. So then I start, working with my friends. And then I was like, dude, I need a break from the freelancer, kind of like scene. And then I start working with them and doing projects and, all that stuff. But I always wanted to build a studio. My goal was to have a studio, a place that I can work with the people that I like. And I was like, okay, working with my friends is the best thing ever. But also my buddies were very wishy-washy. I was like, dude, we're doing this project. Why don't we get a space? And they were like, cool, let's do that on Monday. And then Monday is like, okay, are we looking at spaces? And they're like, okay, let's do it next week. And okay, next week. And I'm like, dude, they are not doing anything. So that was like the first thing that I noticed, that my ego was actually telling me this won't go anywhere. They don't want to do this thing, and I'm very pushy about it. And I was like devastated. It was like, dude, it's not, the conversation is not moving. Maybe, I don't know if that was my fault that I wasn't conducting in the right way, but it was very like weird because I wanted something and they wanted something else, but no one was communicating. So, and then the green card story came up because at the time I was actually applying for my green card in the States. And the first thing you do when you're applying for a green card, you actually ask for letters of recommendation. So you ask people that you've worked in the past and ask them to write you a letter saying, hey, can you state that I'm really awesome? Even, like a ridiculous letter. And then I ask NFL, I send them an email, say, hey, you guys tried to hire me in the past. Can you give me a letter? And then they never answered. I was like, oh shit, it's been 2 weeks and, the process was moving and I need the letter. So I called them again and I send them an email saying, hey, did you guys get the email? So I get a call in a minute. I send the email. 1 minute later, I got a call. Hey, Marcel. Hey, what's up? It's Carlos from NFL. I'm like, hey, dude, what's up? It's like, can you come here like tomorrow at 1:00? I'm like, sure. So I go to NFL. I get there. And I was very like uncomfortable because I sat on this office and then this guy started explaining me all the projects that he had for the next season. And I was like, what the fuck is he explaining me all of this? Because I don't want to hear about this. I wanted my letter and I want to go back to work. And I was like, I don't understand. And then at the end, it's like, okay, man, so I'll call you in a month. I'm like, okay, where's the letter? It's like, which letter? I'm like, oh, shit. It's the letter that's on the email. So he signs the letter for me. He's like, oh, no worries. Here's a letter. I'll talk to you in a month. So in a month, he called me. And I was like, I don't want to work on this project. It's too big. I don't want to work with my friends. I really don't want to do this because I felt very vulnerable. So I was like, dude, I don't know how to do this. And like reading that situation now, my ego was telling me like that I really sucked at the time. I was like, dude, I don't know how to run projects without them. But at the same time, I don't want to take this project. And then my wife was like, dude, we got to do it. So she convinced me to do the project. I hired a bunch of people from home. We had a render farm at our living room, which it was noisy as hell. And so we did the first project and it went well. And then NFL was like, do you want to do another one? I'm like, sure. So I did the second, the third, and then the fourth one. He's like, dude, this is the biggest project that we have, in the entire season. We're going to give that to you. But you need to put a studio together. And I'll give you 2 weeks because I need to take my boss to your shop. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then I said, yes. Okay, we can do this. And all right. So I got with a friend of mine and he was a producer. And I was like, dude, we need to put this thing together like really quick. We have 2 weeks. He was a friend from work. He was a friend. He was like a guy that I worked together in the past because I was already like done with like working with friends. And even though that I love them, all my friends are like, if I start dropping names here, you guys are going to freak out. They're all really freaking good. It's just that I was like, I need something else. So me and Joel, we were like, dude, let's go and get a space. So we got a temp space. NFL went there, and that's how State was born. State was born in 2 weeks, and then we did this NFL project. We start getting more projects and more projects and all that. And then that was like within a year, and it was totally out of the blue. I was like, dude, I don't even know what we're doing. I thought that opening a studio was just like, okay, here's our show reel and let's go. No, that was like the first deception I had. And then in 2015, right in the beginning, we were like getting projects and people, getting to know more clients and all that. And then I had the three major facts in my life, which is the first one is my partner. Joel came to me and said, dude, can you go for a beer? And I said, yeah. So we get there, the guy start crying. I'm like, what the fuck? Is someone dying? He's like, man, I love you, but I can't do this anymore. I'm like, it's too much responsibility. I want to go back to Connecticut and be a farmer. I'm like, what the fuck? Farmer? Dude. Okay, I don't know how to fight that, sure. I can convince you to do so many different things, but this is so random. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to do because the companies I invested all my money, it's been a year where I'm working off my savings because for the first year I got paid nothing. So I was working off my savings and I was like, dude, I'm too deep in this thing. So I need to keep going. And then I bought him out and I said, dude, I'll get you your money and then I'll see you later. And then in a month, my dad passed and I'm like, oh shit, another hit. I'm like, oh God. And then I didn't have time to process because I remember like things in Brazil run too fast, So I think my dad died on a Saturday, and then I tried to travel in Brazil, but then he was buried in the next day. So I was like, I didn't have time to process. I was like, okay, a farmer, death. Poof. And then my wife comes to me, she's like, you're gonna be a dad. I'm like, oh shit, what else can happen? Or an earthquake in LA. What the fuck? Stop this thing. I wanna get out. So all these crazy things, but it made me really strong. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to go, So everything good, she's pregnant. It's all going well. I'm like healing from my loss. Whatever, my partner being a farmer, I don't care. Let's go. And then things got worse, actually, if it's possible. We got a call from a big client. And we were trying to work with this client so much. And I'm going to drop the name because it's fine. They're our client now. It's Fox. So Fox called us and say, hey guys, we have a project for you. It's quick turnaround, all the same bullshit that we all hear every day. There's no budget, but it's going to look cool and everything. And you do this one and I'll give you a bigger one later and all that shit that we hear all the time, right? I was like, yes, let's do it. Super stoked, right? And then I booked. So they called me on a Friday. They say, look, the project is yours, approved. Book everyone. We're good. But you guys need to start tomorrow on Saturday. Look at this. It's shit, So you can tell when a project will go wrong when it starts on a Saturday. So that's a big lesson. Project starts on Saturday, kickoff, 9 a.m. No. So on Saturday, 10 a.m., I was flying people, two designers, actually one creative director now at Buck, Bitar, and Bruna. She's an art director at Buck as well. But by the time they were freelancers, I flew them from Brazil to work with me. So they were flying to LA. I got a call from Fox, 10 a.m. Hey, Marcel, what's the kill fee for the project? I'm like, what? They're like, we're canceling the project. Dude, I felt like I didn't know what to do. I remember like walking around like, what the fuck? I booked like 6 people for 3 weeks and I'm on the hook for this and I need to honor the booking. I'm picking up all these people at the airport in like 4 hours. I don't even know what to do. So my ego went to the ground. So I went from this thing having like a nice client calling me to shit. And then I remember calling Fox at 10 p.m. on Saturday and saying to the guy, you guys spend this money on a dinner and you guys are going to hurt me financially so much. And the guy was like, Marcel, chill out. Wait 2 weeks and I'll give you a project. Don't worry. It's fine. So I was like, okay, but it's fine. But he's like, dude, just go to sleep, think about everything and I'll get you a new project in 2 weeks. I was like, okay. So, but I had people starting on Monday and I go, dude, I need to act really fast. So I went back to the studio Saturday night. I wrote a script because a few months before that, I shot a bunch of NFL players. Do you guys know that those cards that the NFL dudes are like angry and they put the ball in front of the camera, all that stuff? So I shot 80 players so they can put their names and their stats right next to them. So I was like, dude, what if I create a spot that I use that footage because I want to do cell animation, because by the time I was just doing like crazy, 3D, I call them the bro tags, like those gigantic 3D and reveal the NFL logo. And then I was like, dude, I want to change the aesthetic of the studio. So this is my chance. So it was a really bad thing that Fox did to me, but it was also the best thing ever. Because in 48 hours, I was like, dude, I came up with a project. So everyone showed up on Monday. And then I put them in a room. And then I said, dudes, I got a project for us. It's not the Fox project. They were like, whoa. I'm like, no, it's a spec for NFL. We're going to work this for the next 2 weeks. And this is how I showed them the project. So try to get them, excited about.
I've been here forever inside my dreams. But I worked hard. All paths led me to this moment. Always rushing, with a weight on my shoulders. Some say I'm just a college boy that got lucky. I say I'm hungry. When things get tough, I get tougher. I already feel my skin getting thicker every single game. You'll scream my name, I'ma let my beast out.
And I was like, dude, this is gonna be so cool. It's gonna be awesome. And everyone is like, okay, all right. And then I was like, dude, I can't let this thing go to the ground. So I need to like really get people pumped. So after a few meetings, everyone got really pumped about the idea. And this is the final spot that we did.
I've been here forever, inside my dreams. I worked hard. All paths led me to this moment. Always rushing, with a weight on my shoulders. Some say I'm just a college boy who got lucky. I say I'm hungry. When things get tough, I get tougher. I already feel my skin getting thicker. Every single game. You'll scream my name. I'm gonna let my beast out.
Cool. Thank you. So the funny thing about the spot is I was like, we finished the spot and I go, I'm showing this to NFL and it's a strike. They're gonna buy this thing for sure. So I call NFL, I schedule a meeting, I go there and I show the spot, and the creative director goes, I kind of hate it. I'm like, oh, fuck, he really hates it. And I was like, oh my God, this is like a huge disadvantage now. So I invested my money, my time. They don't like it, and he's like, it doesn't speak to our language. We're so, we love like 3D and all that stuff. And, this is too young for us and everything. So it was like learning by necessity. And I was like, dude, I got to be patient, maybe someone is actually going to like it. And then a few months later, I got a call from the Lakers. And they gave us the entire campaign for the Lakers 2016, 17, and 18 because of that NFL spot that we put on our website. So that tells me that I really believed on that spot, and I try to get everyone pumped. So I was actually like I took a big hit financially, and I could be like, oh my God, I took a hit and now, I'm really hurt. No, I didn't have time for that. I had to, hit the ground running. So Fox called me again in 2 weeks and they were like, Marcel, here's your project. And that is actually the project that put State on the map. And I'll show you. It's a 4-year-old spot, but it was featured everywhere. And that's how we start shaping up our studio.
Okay, so if you let soccer go to your head last summer, Then get ready to go nuts all over again. Because it's time for the FIFA Women's World Cup 2015, and we could win this one. We've done it before. At the very first Women's World Cup in 1991, the U.S. beat Norway, led by player and perm wearer of the century, Michelle Akers. And even though the Norwegians battled back to win the second tournament, America won again in 1999 when Brandi Chastain ripped her shirt off in front of a packed Rose Bowl, which nowadays would get you a yellow card and probably arrested. Then the Germans won back-to-back titles led by Bridget Prince and goalkeeper Nadine Angerer, who incidentally has more clean sheets than your mama's house. And despite Abby Wambach's miraculous header, Japan edged us the win on penalties in 2011. Not that we're bitter. Anywho, America, the U.S. women are out to make this year their year. But France is playing better than a 2001 Bordeaux paired with an iced Camembert. And the Germans still have the wall. And by that I mean Angerer. Japan are defending champs, as mentioned. Brazil are led by 5-time FIFA Player of the Year Marta, who is so amazing that, like Prince, she only feels the need to have one name. And host Canada isn't taboo to squander the world stage because their captain, Christine Sinclair, is a national treasure. So, sure, if we make it through the group of death, and yes, we're in it again, it's gonna be tough. But we have Alex, Abby, Kristen, and America's best. And they are ready to dominate the FIFA Women's World Cup 2015. It all begins June 6th.
Kick. Yeah, so that project was actually amazing because the first, and then I noticed that the first project that we were supposed to work with Fox was an invite for their CEO meeting. So no one would see that video. Like, thank God that shit went away. So again, at the time I was very pissed off, but then now looking back, that was the best thing ever because this video had 17 million views in 2 days. It was crazy. So FIFA shared because FIFA had the scandal at the time with the corruption, so they were trying to hide it. So they shared the video, we're fun, we love women and everything, and the soccer would be awesome. So again, it was awesome. And I remember Justin Cohn, and he wrote me an email. It's like, dude, I want to do a whole article with you on Motionographer. So that was actually a pretty awesome, thing that happened to us. And then my ego was back again. I was like, dude, my ego was on the ground. And then this thing was coming up. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm feeling great. But all I wanted was to be kind of different. I want to be a different studio because I was afraid of becoming a cheaper version of the other studios in LA. And LA is so competitive. It's a weird market. Imagine State is on a street that it's State, Imaginary Forces, Man vs. Machine, and King and Country. The same physical street. So it's a weird environment to be. You feel the pressure. So you go to the coffee shop, you see the creative director of Man vs. Machine. We're like, hey, what's up? Are you guys pitching on that project? No. I'm like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be pitching on that. So there's a lot of pressure on that, on that part. But I had to pay an extra attention. And being stubborn to me was actually trying to find not a formula. Let's not follow any formula. Let's just be different than our competitors. But then this whole thing comes to my life, and I'm feeling the pressure of look at all these studios. Look at Buck, which is my favorite studio ever. But Giant Ant, Oddfellows, Gunner, Motionographer, Stash, festivals, and all that stuff. And I was feeling a small fish on this huge pond. But I was like, dude, this is so scary, but I can't have my head around that. I need to focus on what I'm good at and just keep going. So that's when I was like, dude, I need to find our vibe, our voice, because now we have a few projects that are really cool, but now I need to talk to the internal self. I was about to launch I call the State version 2, which is our second version of the website, but I didn't want to launch, just say, hey, here's our new website, So then we wrote something that came from inside. We're like, let's tell people what we are about. So we did our first manifesto, and here it is.
Yeah, we've pretty much been on fire since day one. Even though we're Angelinos, it doesn't make us beach bums. Most of the time, we're turning ideas into moving pixels and keyframes. It keeps us eager, like a kid ready to get down on the best fried pastry in town. We learned that being wise was better than being big. That's how we became a well-oiled machine, ready to take on the near impossible. Every day, every frame, all over again.
Cool. Thank you. But then this spot actually, got us more press and everything. So there was another article on Motionographer talking about, our voice, and then I would go to clients, and instead of showing like, because you are in LA, so you assume that having a portfolio full of brands means nothing, means zero, because everyone works for Nike, Apple, Facebook, whatever, you name it. So when I go to clients and I was showing this and everyone was connecting to that. And then I start getting a lot of projects because of that, manifesto. So people start calling us. But then one day I was like, dude, this brand needs an evolution. So I can't keep, having this conversation, being sentimental, like, oh, it comes from inside, the pixels and keyframes and all that shit. It needs something else. It's time for like State really find the voice. And I was like building up the ego again. I'm like, because I start feeling like that, drop on my, ego, confidence. So I was like, okay, I need to build up again. So we went through a whole process of rebranding ourselves. And we worked with a lot of people, including Joel, who's here. And we found that State needed a voice. And I was building up. And then that thing becoming, that I told you guys that I'm driven by anger. I wanted to do a spot that actually I could show to clients and say, hey, this is us. So then we came up with our Understated, which is this spot I'm going to show you now.
Once upon a time, we were obsessed with finding our style. Everyone said, find your thing and get good at it. Okay, but once we found that thing, then what? Standardized, streamlined, and nope, we are not gonna listen to them, the dinosaurs and the same old shit crew. No, there is a greater quest afoot, the Making Cool Stuff quest, diving headfirst into the impossible and totally failing, but then not failing. So when they ask, yo, State, what's your style? We'll tell them.
Thank you. So what I learned about the story that I just told you guys, it's that I learned how to navigate through my ego and through the necessities and disadvantages of the life. So as you can tell, it's always this thing that it's like, one time you're like at the top of your, shit, and then sometimes you're feeling like shit. And you're always, if you know how to navigate that, it will totally be fine. So I found that all the disadvantages that I had through, this whole story of building the studio for the past 5 years, it was actually the best thing that could ever happen to me.